What's poppin'? What's tea? It's your girl Spicy Niche, and we are back for Ebuka Turns Up Africa, episode 3 and 4. Now, if you are new here, welcome, and thank you to all the people who have just recently subscribed to my channel. On this channel, we do Nollywood reviews. I'm probably gonna branch out and do a couple other things, but make sure you subscribe to stay tuned to everything that I have going on. Now, without further ado, let's get into this review, because when I watched this episode, I just finished watching it, I was vibrating to come on here and talk about the nonsense that we have witnessed on this show. So we start off this episode with everyone having breakfast. Now, Ebuka brings up how certain people have issues with each other, and then it's like Zubi says something to the effect of, what do you mean by that? Like, all I did was tell Jimmy he's emotional. And he is. And so Alistair jumps in and is like, there's nothing wrong with being emotional, but it's just the way that Jimmy expresses it. Like, I already talked about Jimmy too much in my last video. I don't want to drag it in this one. So anyways, after that, Timini organizes paintball for the guys. And it was really nice to see all the guys getting along on one accord, finally, because this is a boys trip. And like I said in my last video, people like to make it seem like girls are the ones that are always having drama. No, it's actually these Nigerian men. So then Onoja apologizes to Jimmy for the whole situation. And Jimmy is like, oh, there's no need to apologize. But Jimmy, you were in your feelings, like the sensitive person that you are. So I honestly think that it was big and respectable of Onoja to see that, okay, like, he obviously feels some type of way. Let me just apologize. Let's squash it. Let's move on. So after paintball, they have their last dinner in Rwanda, in which Ebuka tells them that they're going to Morocco. Now, the first place they're going to Morocco is Casablanca. All the guys meet up on the beach, but then they notice Zubi is missing. And so Timini is playing this game of like, put a finger down, and then he goes, put a finger down if you miss Zubi. And I'm like, Timini, if you're a fan of Zubi, just say that, because his name can never just leave your mouth. Then Zubi comes back to the beach conveniently, and this is what I'm saying, like, something about this is scripted, because it's like, how is Timini playing put a finger down, and conveniently when he's like, if you miss Zubi, Zubi just runs across the beach like we're in Baywatch or something. But anyways, Zubi comes back. He has these braids. I don't know if he was trying to be like Timini, but Timini is like, yeah, Zubi's trying to be like me. He looks like a cheap imitation of me with those braids. And I don't know if Zubi was doing it to make fun of Timini or he just genuinely wanted braids. But anyways, all the guys go surfing, and Ebuka and Timini are the ones that stay back while all the other guys have fun in the water and do their thing. Now, while they are surfing, Onoja gets injured because I think he was directly behind Zubi during the surfing, and he didn't want to hit Zubi, so he like stayed back, and that was when Zubi kind of flipped over, and the surfboard, I think, hit Onoja's wrist and some of his face. So it was not pretty. Onoja was injured, and that was pretty much what happened with the whole surfing situation. Then the boys are leaving Casablanca and going to Marrakech. Now, as soon as they get to the villa, Timini is like, oh, I'm not really feeling this one. I like the one in Rwanda better. What did they do you? What is actually wrong with you? Like, nobody asked that. Just be appreciative of the villa, take it all in, and keep that to yourself. So as the guys get to this breakfast table, they talk about how Zubi hit Onoja in the face. And Zubi is like, oh, he didn't know that he did that, you know, because Onoja didn't say anything. So then I don't really like how Ebuka likes to throw stones and hide his hand. And that's one thing that I'm noticing about him in this series. He goes on to say, oh, so do you think Zubi did it on purpose? Why would Zubi do it on purpose? Like, what are you trying to instigate? And Onoja is like, no, I don't think he did it on purpose. And Zubi also is like saying that he really doesn't feel the need to apologize. What do you mean you don't feel the need to apologize? So basically he says that he doesn't feel the need to apologize because it wasn't on purpose and he didn't know, which I find flawed. If you injure somebody knowingly or unknowingly, you are supposed to apologize. Like, What is wrong with you? Anyways, he issues one half-ass apology, not really an apology. And that's when Timini butts and is like, oh, let all the guys go around and say how they feel about each other. Okay, so this is the part where it gets a little interesting. So in the confessionals, Ebuka is like, oh, Timini is the real instigator. But no, Ebuka, no. You are the real instigator. I think this is like the third time you've thrown out a question that you know is controversial and you've sat back and let everybody fight about it. So you and Timini are both the instigators on this trip if we are just being so honest. So first to go up and say how they feel is Zubi. Now, Zubi says that he feels Alistair is a pretender. He feels like he's a drunkard. The whole time on this trip, he's just been drinking and drinking and drinking. And he's like, you're not really, I guess, truthful. You're just a drunkard and you hide. Basically, from what I gathered is what Zubi was trying to say. Timini goes on to say that he thinks Alistair is a clown. A clown. He thinks he's the group's clown, and the reason why he's always drinking is so he can keep his energy up so he can perform for the group. Can you just imagine? Can you just imagine? Like, I can't even imagine if someone said that to me, that I'm the clown of the group, that I'm here to perform for you all. Like, you're coming to watch my show and I'm the circus. Like, that is crazy. At this point, Alistair doesn't really say too much, and then Ebuka goes on to tell Jimmy that, yes, Jimmy is emotional, but he just says how he feels. After that, the guys go to the night market in Marrakech. So they are dancing with the people. They're trying new foods. They're eating sheep. Is it sheep that they ate? They ate sheep, I think, and it was sheep brain. And they said it tastes like egg. Ebuka was like, it tastes like egg that they've grinded and that they've pushed back together, like the texture. I was like, absolutely not. But I'm glad, you know, the guys are out there trying new things out of their comfort zone. So the guys are split up in two groups, and the first group is Ebuka, Timini, and Alistair, which they all get together to discuss how they don't really feel, well, Alistair and Timini don't really feel that Zubi's apology to Onoja was genuine. And you know, Ebuka feels like it was genuine, but you know, I don't feel like it was genuine. And Alistair even brings up a point, is that the point of saying sorry is so that person knows that you are remorseful for what you did. And even if it was an accident, Zubi is genuinely not remorseful for inflicting pain on Onoja, and I just don't understand that, to be quite honest. So now the next group, Onoja, Jimmy, and Zubi, get together to go eat snail. And in an effort to get to know Onoja better, Jimmy poses the question, oh, what do you think about the guys calling me emotional? What does that have to do with you getting to know somebody? Like, when did those two things correlate? You're asking somebody about yourself, but you're trying to get to know them? But anyways, Onoja answered the question very politically correct, in my opinion. He says that he doesn't feel like it's anger. He feels like Jimmy just acts off of impulse. And because he's loud and he's shouting, it comes across as anger. And I think it's genuine anger. I think it's a combination of both, if you ask me. If you watch my last video, I told you that I think Jimmy is a sissy. He's a crybaby and he's always complaining about something. But actually, in this episode, I feel like he's tried to curb that narrative by remaining very calm, at least in this first 20-30 minutes. So, I mean, I don't know. I think he needs to stop being super impulsive and be more like Onoja, like sit, think, internalize it, and decide if something is worth your energy. Not just be having these random outbursts for things that are so small, might I add. So Jimmy states that literally what I just said, the opposite of him is Onoja, and how Onoja internalizes things, like the situation that happened on the golf course. I can understand a little bit where Jimmy is coming from here, because Onoja doesn't necessarily address the situation then and there. He kind of waits, like I said, to see if the situation is worth his time and then addresses it. But in Jimmy's defense, he's saying that by the time you want to go address something, the moment has already passed. Like, we've already moved on. So it's like, why re-bring this up? So from that perspective, I can understand slightly where Jimmy is coming from. Now, what I don't understand is how he's saying that, oh, Onoja does that. He just like basically shuts down, and then he was like, you made me look crazy at the golf course. You make me look like I have anger issues. Jimmy, how many times did I call your name? Nobody made you to shout and be doing basketballs at the golf course. You chose to do that. You chose to act like a lunatic for no reason. So how is it Onoja's fault that he sat quietly and let you act a fool? That's exactly what I would have done. You a grown man, dog. Like, what are you doing? You too old for that. I would have done exactly what Onoja did. If somebody wants to act crazy and shout above me and do all this extra stuff, I'm just going to let them do it. And at the end of the day, everybody's going to see between the both of us who is really crazy. Like, but don't make it seem like it was Onoja's fault that you had that outburst. That was you and your anger issues. I also don't like how Zubi was basically piggybacking on what he was saying. Like, Zubi, pick a side. First, at the golf course, you were on Onoja's side. You are backing him up. Now that Jimmy is confronting Onoja, you are on Jimmy's side. You are backing him up. Pick a side. Like, you cannot do both. You can't do both, because you were there when it happened, to the point where it even became you versus Jimmy at that golf course. So why are you all of a sudden now changing mounts? Like, I don't like stuff like that. But anyways, after that, all the guys end up going hiking. And Timini is really not too fond of the hiking thing. And oh my days, this was very, very funny. I guess he sits down to smoke. And Zubi finally, because Timmy has been throwing jabs at Zubi this entire show. Zubi is like, of course the smoker will be tired. When you're smoking everywhere, why wouldn't you be tired? Why wouldn't you be lazy? And I think in an effort to play with Timini is sitting down and Zubi like drags his legs. But I kind of understand where Timini is coming from. I don't play with hiking. Hiking is not my thing. I don't want to be up on one mountain and you will release your anger on me or push me to one side and I've fallen off a cliff. I just don't feel like, I feel like hiking is where people end up going missing. So I understand how Timini just did not like that Zubi did that, because at the end of the day, they're around a whole bunch of rocks. You might playfully push somebody and they can hit their head on a rock and just flat out die. Like, let's just be so honest. So yeah, all that rough play, all that hiking, all those mountains is just not me. So after they hike higher up, and some people get on these donkeys. So as they get on the donkeys and they get to the higher part of the mountain to see the waterfall, that's when Timini decides that he wants to call Onoja and Alistair to decide to vent. What are you venting about, Timini? What are you venting about? Why are you pulling Onoja and Alistair to vent? If you have an issue with what Zubi did, go and call Zubi to decide and say, hey, bro, I don't like what you did. We're in these mountains. It's kind of dangerous. Like, let's just be safe. Let's just be guided. But for you to call Onoja and Alistair, it's like, man, move. Anyways, after he calls them, he tries to instigate and is like, Onoja, did you feel like you believed Zubi's apology? And Onoja is like, yeah, like he doesn't care, like it was a mistake, let's move on. But at the same time, Alistair is like, you need to hold people accountable, and in that moment, you need to hold Zubi accountable for what he did. And so I feel like in this moment, they're both ganging up on Onoja based on the conversation they had yesterday with Ebuka about how they feel like Zubi's apology was fake, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, Onoja has moved on, but they're trying to insinuate that he might still be holding it in his chest. And I'm just like, Onucha is just so calm. Like, he doesn't want problems with anybody. Like, he's not like you, Timini. He's not gonna just start stuff. And you know, if he says that he believed the apology, he took the apology, then who are you to be carrying the matter on top of your head? Let's just leave it as it is. He accepted the apology, move on, and enjoy the trip. Now, shortly after this, something shocking happens because Alistair, to me, has been very calm this whole trip. He hasn't really said Ole but a few words, you know. So Alistair then calls Timini out and is like, you know, what's his name? Zubi calling me a drunk. That doesn't matter. It's not, you know, my fault if you feel like me being on vacation having a good time means me being a drunkard or an alcoholic. That, like, and I wholeheartedly agree. We're on vacation. Let's drink. Let's have a good time. Like, you only know the vacation version of me. So if you see that and you feel like I'm an alcoholic, cool, it's fine. But Alistair is like, the one that really pained him is Timini calling him a joke. And all of a sudden, Timini is shook. Timini is shook that somebody finally caught him out. Because no, you always talking mad shit, and it was time. It was about time somebody called you out. Now all of a sudden, Timini has retreated. Now he's like, oh my gosh, I'm being called out. Now he's silent. But you always have so much to say. And that's pretty much the end of episode 3. I was really trying to breeze through it if you didn't know that, so we can really get to episode 4. So I can say the thing that's been in my chest as I just finished watching it. So yeah, that's the end of episode 3. Let's move on to episode 4. So in episode 4, we continue that conversation in episode 3, where Timini feels like if Alistair had an issue, he should have addressed it right away. And to me, based on the way other things have happened, I understand why Alistair didn't address it then and there, because it shouldn't have been a table discussion. Like, now it's an intimate thing where it's just the 3 of you. It seems like that is the proper place to have this conversation, not over the table with everybody where you have opinions and this one jumping in and things like that. And Timini goes on to say that Alistair has not shown them seriousness this entire trip. But again, to Alistair's point, I'm on vacation. I'm having a good time. Like, it is what it is. Long story short, Timini apologizes to Alistair, and Alistair says that he felt Timini did this to deflect. And I feel the same way. I feel like this is the first time somebody has challenged Timini on this trip to where he kind of felt like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody's challenging me. To where in order to not look meek, he was like, oh, well, let me just end it and let me just apologize. And that's exactly what he did. Like, and I feel like this whole trip, Timini has been saying rubbish, especially in those confessionals, and nobody's checked him. And it's funny how the first time somebody checked him, he's gone mute. But anyways, moving on. The guys go to the club with scales. Oh my days. If you know me, you know I love scales. I love scales sound. And all the boys are dressed up. You know, Jimmy's like, yeah, I put it on. Jimmy, you look all right. You looked regular. You looked very regular. Ebuka is like, yeah, I'm the best dressed. I'm like, Ebuka, you looked regular. You looked very regular. You didn't really put it on like that. But that's besides the point. The guys go to the club. They have a good time. You know, again, it's nice when you see grown men acting grown, going out, having a good time, and chilling. And, you know, Ebuka brings up how, you know, he doesn't really club anymore. Obviously, he's married. Like, why should you be in the club? You know, he enjoyed it in his 20s. And all the guys are very shocked to see Ebuka out of his element, dancing and carrying on. And, you know, it's nice to see Ebuka kind of, like, loosen up a little bit. I can't remember who said that. If Ebuka was in Lagos, he wouldn't be like this. And, yeah, he's married with children. Like, he should be in his house with his wife. So, yeah, that was pretty much it about that whole club scene. So after the club, the guys go to witness this beautiful sunset, and Ebuka says that none of the guys really know Zubi outside of acting. And I can genuinely say that Zubi, along with, but there's a lot of people on this trip that I can say honestly didn't really open up to, like, for people to get to know them outside of what they do. And Zubi is definitely number 1 on that list. Zubi kind of just, like, observes, pitches in where he feels like he wants to pitch in, And that's pretty much it. So Onoja asks Zubi when was his last serious relationship. And Zubi says that he's never been in a relationship. Can you just imagine? At your big age. He says that he's afraid of women. I'm like, are you afraid of women or are you afraid of commitment? And then Timini is throwing a jab saying that, oh, maybe Zubi doesn't know what a relationship is. Oh, jeez. So, like, always saying something. Like, you love Zubi at this point. Like, go give him a kiss. Mwah. Like, because at this point, every single moment you have, you're talking about Zubi. But anyways, that's pretty much that. And I feel like it's very strange. It's very strange for Zubi to say he's never been in a serious relationship. But then I also think it speaks to the type of character that he has. I do. Because being in a relationship takes selflessness. And it just seems like you are not ready to be selfless, to consider another person, to give to another person, and be vulnerable with another person. So, I mean, hey, that's just my personal opinion. So then Onoja asks, what's the hardest decision he's ever had to make? And Ebuka jumps in and redirects the question back to the questioner. Onoja, what was the hardest decision he ever had to make? And I believe he said something to the effect of he used to be an engineer and he left to pursue this whole, I think, promotion party thing. And at some point he went into a lot of debt, and that really got him to be on his spiritual journey and get closer to God. And, you know, the guys were asking him, oh, who supported you? And he was like, nobody supported me. It was just me and God. And, you know, he said he was like 100 million in debt, and the guys asked, okay, so now how much in debt are you? And he said he's about 10 million. And Timini, who do you think you are? Are you Dangote? Like, even Dangote still define money. He's like, oh, what's your account? Let me send it to you. Like, Timini, please. Timini, shit. Like, Timini just gets on my nerves at this point. So then this is the fun part. Timini says his hardest decision in life, upon everything that happened in your life, is deciding to pursue acting over being a 419er, over doing fraud. Can you just imagine? Can you just imagine? Like, but he goes on to explain how, you know, when he was acting in the beginning, sometimes he'll just be in the background. He will have no lines, and his guys will call him and they will be like, oh, we want to see you on the screen, or when you could talk, like, you're not saying anything, you're just in the back. And so I guess he was seeing all the guys kind of like driving all these big cars, doing fraud, and I'm just like, wow. And that was the hardest decision you had to make. Honestly, as he sent this thing, I get mine say maybe he's doing some on the side. Well, I won't lie to you guys, because what? Waiting Musa no go see for gates. Are you sure? Are you sure? You're making honest living. Okay, no problem. Shebi, you're the biggest in Africa. No problem. We will move on. And after all of this serene, that's when the guys realize the true meaning of friendship. It seems like they've all come to this kumbaya moment. And I'm just like, okay, no problem. So all the guys go to get souvenirs the next day, right? For their wife, kids, whoever, mom, dad, whatever. They're all going to go get souvenirs. That's when Zubi says that he has planned some sort of massage, right? And then he insinuates that this massage has happy endings. And that's when Ebuka and Jimmy kind of exclude themselves from that activity. As they should. They're married. And Timini begins to feel some type of way as to why did they exclude themselves. But if you're saying that they're going to some happy ending massage and they are married men, why would they not exclude themselves, Timini? Like, let's just be so honest. So they go look for the souvenirs and the other guys go get the massages. And while they're looking for the souvenirs, Jimmy is just like getting some advice from Ebuka about marriage and things like that. And how, you know, he's very selfish and self-centered, and you know, now it's when he goes out that he's realizing that you're going on this vacation, you have to bring something back for your wife, bring something back for your son, and things like that. And I like this marital powwow that the two of them were having, just about marriage and all those kind of things. I thought it was nice to see. So the rest of the guys go to get their massages, in which they are men actually doing the massage. So no happy endings there, unless, you know, no. But I don't think there was any happy endings at the end of those massages, because the men that were doing it were like cracking their backs and twisting them, and they had their feet in their face, and I was like, ooh, this is just a lot going on for me. But after that, the guys all go for dinner. Dun, dun. Like this is where things get very interesting. I was just trying to get to this point in the video so I could say my mind. But yeah, the guys all go for this dinner, and everybody comes to the dinner moody. I don't know what happened, but everybody just came to this dinner very moody. So Ebuka kind of opens the floor to say that he doesn't like how Timini is always chickening out of things. So Timini now bounces it back to Ebuka, and he's like, but you also chickened out of stuff, because Timini is basically saying, what did he chicken out of? The only thing he chickened out of was the surfing, and that's because of his hair, and he didn't want to mess up his hair. And the only reason he knew that you could swim with this hair is because he saw Zubi swimming. Timini, you mean to tell me you've never seen anybody in the pool with rasta? You've never seen anybody in the pool with braids? Come on now, just say you didn't want to mess up your hair. Fine, simple. I'll understand that. But to say, I didn't know that you could swim with it until I saw Zubi doing it, stop lying. Stop lying. You've seen girls in the pool with braids and faux locks and all that great stuff. But I like how Zubi is like, Timini, you're in love with me. You're literally in love with me. And Timini is like, yeah, I am in love with you, because Timini, it's giving love. Zubi is the love of your life. Do you guys know how, you know, when you're in elementary school, or I don't even know what they call it in Nigeria, but when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there's this guy that's always like picking on you, or even as a guy, there's that one girl in your class that's always picking on you, always saying something about you. Why is she doing that, or why is he doing that? It's because they like you. Always bullying you. It's because they like you. And you like Zubi. In fact, you don't even like him. You're in love with him. I don't understand. Just say you love him and move on. Simple. So now Ebuka wants all the guys to go around and say how they felt about somebody in the beginning of the trip and how they feel now. And Alistair is the first to speak. He says that in the beginning, he was kind of confused on how Ebuka and Zubi were friends. And so that's when Zubi is like, Alistair is fake. Alistair is phony, because he was like, the first time they met, you asked what was my name, but you already know who I am. I said, okay, Zubi. He's like, you know who I am. But I understand Alistair's point. It's like, well, Alistair should not have said, what's your name? I think he should have just introduced him like, hey bro, I'm Alistair, nice to meet you. And then Zubi would have been like, oh, hey bro, I'm Zubi, nice to meet you. You know what I mean? But for you to ask somebody's name when you already know them, like, I can understand a little bit where Zubi is coming from. And Alistair is like, well, I just met you, so obviously I'm going to ask your name. And Zubi's like, but you already know who I am. So they're doing this their back and forth that is just draining me, honestly. So I notice how Jimmy wants to insert himself in that little conversation. And that's when Timini also inserts himself in that conversation and tells Jimmy he needs to be quiet. He tells Jimmy he needs to be quiet, let them talk it out, bro, blah, 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 blah. And for the first time in this series, Jimmy was silent. Matter of fact, Jimmy was not silent. He was silenced. He said, okay, I won't say anything. And I was so shocked. I'm like, is it that Jimmy doesn't want to seem like he's emotional, or like, I really think that them calling him emotional has really gotten to him at this point to where he's like, you know what? Let me just be quiet. I don't want him to say I'm emotional anymore. So we move back to Ebuka versus Timini. And Timini is like, oh, Ebuka, you missed a few activities as well, you know. And Ebuka is like, the reason he didn't do the massage was because it was outside of his religious beliefs. And I don't understand what's so hard to grasp, Timini. Is monogamy so hard for you to grasp that you don't understand that when somebody is married and they've made that commitment with God, there is nothing that will take them outside of that? And when you mention something like getting a massage that has a happy ending, he doesn't want to be a part of it. Like, use your common sense. If you have any, please use it, find it. Because I don't understand what the problem is. And, you know, Ebuka tells Timini that he lives for calling people out. And I agree. I just feel like Timini's always looking for a moment. Like, at first I thought it was Jimmy, but it's Timini, it's you too. You're always looking for your moment to shine. Why? Now, I think the real thing that was peppering him was that he mentioned to Ebuka that, oh, how can you take one person to Lake Kivu? Like, and Ebuka says that, you know, he understands, but it was just the way Timini delivered it. I just feel like Timini has this barbaric style of delivery. I don't even have the exact words to describe his delivery tactic, but it's just like, you're not talking to people, you're talking at somebody like they're beneath you. Like, yeah, that's what it is. You like you think you're above everybody. Like, Timini, please calm down. Like, this actually pissed me off, and we've not even gotten to the part that really grinded my gears. So then Ebuka goes on to say that it was pretty much an option between shopping for souvenirs and getting the massage. And Ebuka, and this is where I'm like, is this staged at this point? Because that couldn't be far from the truth. It was not an option of, hey, let's go get the massages, or hey, let's go for souvenirs. It was just an executive decision that, like, if the single men want to go for massages that grant happy ending, cool. But the married men are going to go over here and shop for souvenirs. And so, honestly, I think instead of directing the energy towards Ebuka, the energy should be directed towards Zubi, because Zubi knows these two men are married, and he even suggested something like that. I feel like that's how you know, like, who your friends are. Like, can you imagine you're going out with your friend who knows that you're married and they're suggesting you go get massages with happy endings? If I'm your wife, I would tell you, cut him off. He don't respect marriage. Like, what is wrong with you? So I'm like, Zubi should have just, like, initiated a regular massage. He should have initiated like a regular spa. Let all the guys go to the spa, get some drinks, get some massages, get in the pool, like that, get facials. Like, that should have been what Zubi organized, not insinuating that they were going for happy ending massages. If we're being honest, the pressure should have been on Zubi, who organized something like that, knowing there's two married men in the group. So then Timini insinuates that Ebuka, everyone is kissing Ebuka's ass because, you know, he paid for the trip and he doesn't know what they say about him behind closed doors. And so I didn't get to watch Real Housewives of Lagos this season because they've really tightened it down, and Showmax is not available in America. They need to fix that. But anyways, I'm feeling like, is Timini the Iyabo of this show? Because from what I saw, people were saying that Iyabo was the villain, but Iyabo came out and said that, oh, the show made her be the villain because they wanted drama. So I'm like, did they just pawn Timini, bad boy Timini, to be the one to bring the drama? Because it's like, Timini, where's all this energy coming from? Like, we're actually in the 4th episode, and 1, 2, and 3, you didn't have all this energy for Ebuka. So where is it now coming from? That just seems so strange to me. But him going and saying that, oh, they're kissing Ebuka's ass because he paid for the trip. How much was the trip self? That was the height of disrespect. I don't think it can get any more disrespectful than that, because Timini, If the trip wasn't so expensive, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you do Timini Turns Up Africa? Why didn't you do it? But no, you came as basically a passenger princess, all expenses paid for. And now you're, oh, how much was the trip? If the trip wasn't too much, Ebuka his money now. If you are that big, if you are that bold, say, Ebuka, how much was the trip? You know, let me send you my portion. Since you're so big and bold, since you have energy now, because I don't understand. But I do understand slightly what Timini is saying. And let me explain. I do understand that, like, because Ebuka is the organizer of the trip, people have class. Unlike Timini, people have respect. Unlike Timini, that, oh, like, even if they feel any sort of way towards him, they may whisper in the background, but they may not, like, say it to him strictly because, you know, out of respect, he's the organizer of this trip. But honestly, I feel like if people had anything to say towards Ebuka, they should have just said it, as opposed to gossiping about it to Timini and other people. And then, you know, that's how Timini is having the effrontery to come here and say, oh, well, Ebuka, you don't know what these guys say behind your back. And that whole thing was just it was just messy to me. But that's when Ebuka finally charges back and is like, it's very convenient how you place your ego at the end of the trip when we're about to go home. And that's what I'm talking about. It's very convenient how now all of a sudden Timini has so much to say at the end of the trip when he hasn't really said much the first 3 episodes. Like, and then Timini now starts coming for Alistair, saying that, oh, Alistair, it's not me that you used to open eye. Like, what? He's like, oh, now you want to puff your chest with me. And I'm just like, Timini, because one person in this group challenged you, now the tin is really peppering your body. Especially it being Alistair, somebody who has really had no conflicts this entire trip. The tin really pepper you, eh? Alistair is kissing everyone's ass, asking them to take their pictures. Timini, what does Alistair do for a living? Answer that question. What does he do for a living? He's a photographer. So as a photographer, why would he not ask if he can take everybody's pictures? That's his work. So like, I don't understand this correlation between kissing ass and asking people to take pictures. He's just doing his job. Like, he's a photographer. He knows the best angles. So why would he not? If I go on a vacation and somebody on the vacation is a videographer or photographer, that's who I want to be taking my pictures and videos, because they'll understand the angles, because time and time again, we've gone on vacations and we can all admit with people that don't know how to hold a camera and then all your pictures come out trash. Like, let's just be honest. So he's holding or offering a helping hand where he can. After all of this, guys, I'm stressed from even just talking about it. After all of this, right, Jimmy now jumps in and is like, oh, Timini is being disrespectful, and some of the things that he's saying, he knows that Ebuka does not appreciate them. And Ebuka leaped up and said, who doesn't appreciate them? What are you talking about? He's like, oh, I know how Timini is, so like, I'm not really offended by anything that he says. Just by him saying that, Timini now gets offended and is like, oh, what do you mean you know me? I'm just like, oh, this whole thing is so draining. It's giving Real Housewives of Lagos, Boys Edition. Like, I just feel like Timini is how old again? 37, I believe. Like, I just feel like you're pushing 40, bro. You're pushing 40. Like that. Dare I say, me and my friend were talking about this. Dare I say, your mind, this mind that you have, is functioning like a 25-year-old. And I know 25-year-olds more mature than you. And that is the reason why that year you were trending. Because you were dating somebody that was younger than you by 10, 15 years. Because mentally, I just don't think that anybody in your age group can deal with this childish mentality. Like, I'm just so over the whole entire show. Like, Timini has really rubbished himself for this show. And I don't know if this is him or if this is the producer saying, Timini, you be the drama, you be the person to stir everything up. But all in all, I just feel like the whole thing is just disgusting and it's really making me just like not even like Timini at all. So as I said, Timini found it offensive that Ebuka said that, you know, if anybody else at this table says something about me, I will be offended. But because it's Timini, I don't really care. So Timini now looks at Jimmy and is like, Jimmy, you know what you said about Ebuka, so don't sit on this table and try to pretend. And I think Jimmy asked Timini nothing less than 3 or 4 times. If you know what I said, then say it. If you know what I said, then say it. But Timini, like, and that's why I'm like, is this scripted or what? Because Timini is like the cat caught his tongue. Because the whole time, all he could say is, oh, you know what you say, you know what you say, you know what you guys said. Say the things that was said now. Open your mouth and talk. Jimmy straight up said, if there's anything that I said to you, say it out loud. And Timini had nothing to say. Nothing to say. Silent. And as all this is going on, of course, Onoja, this is why I told y'all in my last video, Onoja is like my favorite of the group because he just sat silently and was just like, if they want to argue, cool, no problem. Because like, it's no need to get involved in that messy situation. Timini even goes as far to say that Jimmy is massaging Ebuka's ego because he's the one that has his return ticket. Timini, like, and so this is what I wonder, right? After all of this, how did everyone go home? Because it's private jet they came. Is it not private jet that they will leave with? So I'm like, they must have all been in the same jet going home. Or did Timini book his own flight back? Like, that's really what I want to know. So basically, the reason I'm asking is because I just don't feel like there's any way that all these guys got on the same jet or on the same plane or however they got back and there was no conversation had. Like, even just them going to the house that night, we can say, okay, cool, they all went back to the same house. He probably slept on this side, Timini slept in this room, but that next morning, there definitely had to be some sort of conversation had if they all entered the same private jet to go back. Or was the PJ just for TV and they all actually went on regular flights back home? Questions that need answers. So anyways, they get back and Zubi and Ebuka meet up to talk about Ebuka's party. And then they say something that makes me really think that most of the stuff was for TV because Ebuka was like, you know, we're guys are gonna argue, and Ebuka was like, yeah, not Ebuka, Zubi was like, yeah, you know, if we didn't argue, it would be boring. So I'm like, are the arguments forced or like what's going on? So then Onoja and Timini have a conversation in which, you know, Onoja is like, yeah, you should come to the party. And Timini is like puffing his chest saying that, you know, I'm known to get paid to come to parties like that. Timini, who do you think you are? Like, you know, in life, I aspire to be as delusional as Timini. I feel like being Delulu is the solution because like that level of delusion, like I aspire because like I would just walk in rooms and think I'm the biggest in Africa and nobody can talk to me, nobody can touch me. So yeah, I aspire to be that delusional. No, seriously. But anyways, we get to the party and all the stars are out. Toke Makinwa, SARS, Dakore. As soon as I saw Dakore at the party, I'm like, Timini is coming. Because there's no way you and your sister didn't have a conversation about this party for a show that you're going to be on. So obviously he's coming. So who else was there? Debange was there. Like so many stars. Toby Bakare. So many people. So small time, I think, it was Jimmy. Jimmy was like, oh, there's an empty glass. Where is Timini? And then Timini strolls in. I'm like, the timing is too impeccable for me. Every time somebody asks about somebody else, that person shows up. The same way when Timini asked about Zubi just magically appeared from thin air. But anyways, so as Timini comes, Jimmy has become the peacemaker of the group and just tells them they should let it go. That's when Ebuka and Timini have a conversation to the side. Now, this is when Timini's prideful self says, oh, I'm not coming here to apologize. I'm just coming here because I feel as though you're owed a conversation. Who are you talking to? Again, like, just your delivery. And so Ebuka states that, you know, he understands some of where Timini was coming from, but he doesn't need to be nasty and disrespectful in his delivery of trying to get his point across. Because Timini has said, oh yeah, I'm just coming here to explain to you my point so you can understand. And Ebuka is sitting there like, what was there not to understand? Like, but you can get your point across without being flat out disrespectful. So then Timini states that he feels he didn't get to know Ebuka, and Ebuka is like, okay, so that's the thing that was really peppering him. He didn't get to know me. They all kumbaya, blah, blah, blah. Show has ended. So now let me talk about my final thoughts. Like like, let's get into it. Personally, I don't feel as though the show should have been called Ebuka Takes Africa. It should have been Ebuka Takes Kigali and Morocco, or Rwanda and Morocco, because he only went to 2 places. Like, if I was production, I would have thought that Ebuka Takes Africa meant we're going to at least minimum 4 places in Africa, not 2. And I'm like, what series do we know that only has 4 episodes? What kind of nonsense is that? A series, to me, should have a minimum of at least 6 episodes. 6, 8, 10, 12, depending. Some even go over that. But like 4 episodes, that's it. Like, let's just be so serious. Like, I don't know. And another thing, the way I envisioned it, I'm getting into my production bag right now. The way I envisioned it would be Ebuka Takes Africa would be like him going with these 5 guys, and you know, everybody can't just be on vacation forever, but then like he would add people along the way and other people would drop off. And let me explain what I mean by that. Like how when they went to Morocco, SARS would join the group, and you know, maybe Jimmy or somebody, depending on schedules, of course, would have to leave. And then like I kept hearing so much talk about Toby Bakare, and I'm like, okay, well then Toby Bakare would come in and then Onoja would leave. You know, like that was what I thought it would be. Or it would be, okay, I'm taking these 5 people to this place and this place. That's done. Now I'm grabbing these 5 group of different people and we're going to Ghana and Cameroon or something like that. That's what I thought it would be. I didn't think it would be we're just going to 2 places in Africa for 4 episodes and we're acting like we're on Real Housewives of Lagos. Like, I'm so confused. And I really hope that a lot of this was for TV, because some of these people acted disgustingly on this show. So let me give my thoughts on everybody. First of all, I feel like Jimmy is a crybaby. Like, I just don't understand. I genuinely, and I'm not even saying this from a place of trying to be funny, I genuinely think that Jimmy needs to go for some type of like counseling, because I think that these outbursts are coming from like a deeper rooted issue that we may not know about, or it might just be for TV. I don't know, but I genuinely think that there's some sort of like trauma that is there that is causing all this anger and all these outbursts, because the way that he handles situations is just not cute. Y'all already know how I feel about Jimmy from my last video. But next, Ebuka, I feel like I've said this so many times in this video, Ebuka throws stones and hides his hand. He's a little bit messy. But I will say he's one of the more mature ones in the group. But I just don't like that whole messy thing that he be doing. But yeah, that's how I feel about Ebuka. I don't know if he was doing that to make his show more interesting, or that's just genuinely his personality, because he was always throwing out a question to like watch the other guys argue and then standing back and just watching the argument happen. Alistair, I think Alistair is going through some sort of pain. I don't know. I feel like there's something going on with Alistair. Like, I don't feel like we really got to know him in this show. I think something has happened. Not only him, the loss of his friend, but there must be something else that has happened. So where he carries this something in him, and I just really want him to you know, go get counseling in order for him to just open up and be more free. Yeah, because I just don't even feel like I got to know Alistair from this show. He was kind of in the shadows until these last 2 episodes, you know. No problem. Who else was on the show? Onoja. I feel like Onoja is chill, but I also feel like he has a wall up. He has a wall up. And, you know, I'm saying this about a lot of the men, and I'm noticing a pattern. You know, with African men especially, I feel like they were taught not to show emotions or be open, especially like if they're the eldest male of the house. They're like, oh, you have to be strong. You can't cry. You can't do this. And I don't know everybody's situation, but I do feel like I'm seeing some of that play out. And, you know, there's different things that happen in people's lives. Like some people were raised by single moms, so they had to become adults early. And because of that, they never really got the chance to show emotion or ever be a kid. Some people like stepped into adulthood at early ages. So, you know, I don't know, but I'm really noticing a pattern of like walls being built up by some of these men, Onoja included. And so, you know, I hope, you know, if they do continue this series with the same group of guys, we're able to get to know some of the guys and have them open up. You know, who else remains? Zubi. How do I feel about Zubi? Zubi is my friend's favorite. We discussed this about an hour earlier, and she says that Zubi acted the most mature of the group. But I do feel like Zubi has a playful side, and sometimes that may not always be a good thing. Like I didn't like what he did to Timini either, because that was unsafe. But I also think that Zubi has some sort of trauma, because for you to not be able to commit to women or not trust women at all, like something has happened somewhere. Something has happened somewhere, and we need to figure out what it is. We need to figure out what it is. And lastly, Timini, I really hope this is not how you are in real life. I really hope this is not how you are in real life. I really hope that this is just for TV. Do you know what I really want? I want a lot of things out of this show. You would think I was on production. I really want like somebody to go on a show like Toke Makinwa show, like how Chioma did with Real Housewives, to really just give us the real of what this was like, or go on like Tea with Tay for somebody to like give us the real gist of what was going on in this show. What were things for production, like what was going on, you know, because it seems like a lot of people had a lot to say. And, you know, I just feel like a lot of these men are like pushing 40 or in their 40s, and for them to be getting on here and behaving like this is really disgusting. And I'm really a person who likes to see Africa, especially West Africa, portrayed in a very positive light, and to see these grown men bickering like you would think we were watching Real Housewives of Lagos is just does not, you know, sit well with me at all. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Otherwise, this video will never end. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share this video. And I really do want some of y'all to comment and let me know what y'all thought of this series, because I don't know, I'm a little dissatisfied with this series. But hopefully next week, I'm thinking of reviewing Love is Blind, because it's really been burning in my chest to talk about Love is Blind. But for the most part on this channel, you know, I do Nollywood, but Love is Blind is something I really want to talk about next week. But depends, if something on Nollywood or Prime or Netflix or whatever comes out, I might review that. But make sure you're subscribed so you'll be notified about my next video. And I will see you guys next week.